Hello and welcome to the Abundology podcast. My name is Renee Spears and I'm here today with Belinda Farrell, who is such an interesting person. Oh my goodness, your background is amazing. You have been a stunt car driver, an actress, you worked for a senator. Now you are a Huna practitioner and the author of Find Your Friggin Joy, which may be the best title ever for a book. So thank you for being here with me today.
Well, I'm really honored. Thank you for having me. I don't know what's going to happen, but I hope magic is created.
Magic is always created around me. So yes. So can you, before we jump into Huna, can you give me just a little bit of your background, how you got started in this?
Well, I just was an ordinary person. I was brought up in a Catholic school, and then I got kicked out and expelled for walking home with a boy. And since then, I started just kind of being a little bit of a rebellious person, kind of walking on the edge, but still always trying to be the good girl. And then I turned 40. I had 2 children, was married to a doctor, turned 40. And then I just wanted to make up for lost time and not be the good girl that I was always trying to be. So I started firewalking with Tony Robbins. And he was my first teacher. And when you walk on fire, it's like a metaphor that says, well, gee, if I can walk on 2,000 degrees of hot coals, what else am I doing that I'm not doing, that I could be doing? And what came up for me was driving a race car. I don't know where that came from, but I wanted to drive a race car, even though I didn't know how to drive a stick shift. So I signed up for a Grand Prix road racing course. I was the only girl, scared to death. And I found out I had a little bit of a talent. And so I got hired to drive for Buick and Cadillac in New York, and my stunt career started. And I did that for almost 10 years. I was a stunt driver for commercials and movies, and it was an exciting time, and I was in my 40s. So I'm saying my life really kind of began at 40 when I started taking all of these chances and learning about fear and how we get rid of fear. And so I delved into hypnosis and timeline therapy and past life regression. And then I tripped into Huna in the Hawaiian Islands. I started to learn the chants, and I was fascinated by the process called Ho'oponopono, which makes you go inside yourself and clean the stuff from the past, clean your judgments and your interpretations of what you think happened, and allows you to start a clean slate. And so I started feeling better as I was doing this process, and at the same time my back was caving in and finally laid me up in bed, and the doctors said that I wouldn't walk again unless I had surgery. Well, funny thing, when you can't walk and talk and stand and sit, you don't get hired. So I got dropped, by my performance team, and I had to learn how to heal myself. And I did. And so my book, Find Your Friggin Joy, is how I did take that into my hands with my higher self and came out with a brand new spine. My scoliosis had cleared up completely, never even asked for that. But it was like a miracle. I just can't tell you how wonderful it is when you're in touch with your own higher self.
It's so true. Now, what exactly is Huna? Which you may not be able to wrap up in a sentence or two, but.
Yeah, right. Well, it means secret, and there were no books written about it back in the day. It was a practice that was done, like before 740 AD, before Christ, when there was a balance system on the earth. And there were kahunas that were doing miraculous healings. There was a gentleman named Max Freedom Long that came to teach on the island, and he saw all these amazing healings, and he wanted to know, well, where's this written down? And it wasn't. So he attempted to start writing what he saw. And if it weren't for the books of Max Freedom Long, I wouldn't be here teaching you. I mean, we have to learn somehow how to do these things. And so he observed, and that's how we came about. He really coined the phrase Huna. It wasn't coined by the Hawaiians. It was a name that he gave because it was secret. You weren't allowed to practice this. The kahunas were put in jail when the missionaries came over because they thought it was sorcery and superstition. So it wasn't until the Religious Freedom Act, I think it was in 1967, that it was finally okay to chant and do the hula in Hawaii. And can
Wow.
you imagine? Yeah.
That's crazy. It's just crazy when we learn about our history, you know, of just women voting not too long ago and stuff like this that we just take for granted that hasn't been there forever. Can you share some of the principles of Huna?
Well, it's leading a hurtless life so that you wouldn't say something to hurt yourself or to hurt somebody else. So that's one of the main things, and taking 100% responsibility for everything that happens to you in your life. So when you can do that, you're at cause rather than effect. And that means if you're at cause, then you can also uncreate it if you created it. Somehow, unconsciously, if we think we have created it, sometimes we may have brought it in from ancestral, sources. But we have to take that responsibility to clear it up in our lifetime.
Yeah, I've been working with quite a few clients now that are doing lots of ancestral healing. It seems to be this may be one of the big moments that we realize that it's our responsibility to do that cleaning.
Isn't that fun? I mean,
Yeah.
it stops here.
Yeah, the buck stops here, exactly. Now,
go
ahead.
ahead.
Now tell me about the practice around forgiveness.
Oh, so many people have such a thought that they think they have to forgive the person that did a horrible thing to them or some type of altercation. It's really forgiving of yourself. That's what this forgiveness is about. We make assumptions that this happened because of this. And if it's in a negative tone, it creates a cord that wraps around that thought. And it can become like a thing, like an issue. It can become like a tumor in the body if you keep blaming yourself or blaming somebody else for it and don't clear it up. And so these thought forms, again, are like cords. And when you forgive yourself, when you say, I'm sorry, I love you, I forgive you, thank you, it dissolves it. It really just kind of, it's like a cosmic eraser. It dissolves it and it sends that thought form to a higher level so that you can deal with the issues that you have between you. And you don't even have to know why you're saying it. You just start saying it as a mantra. We talk to ourselves all the time. Every day we say things like, oh, you idiot, why did you do that? Why did you think that? I used to have people come to me when I was doing hypnosis with a sheet of paper on what do you say to yourself during the day? And people were just like just loathing. I mean, it was just like, really, you think that? And it was very, it was unusual if I saw something with anything positive in it. People really did not like themselves. So you're saying things that are bad to yourself. You can consciously say, I'm sorry. I love you. I forgive you. Thank you. When something comes up, because the unconscious is trying to get all this stuff out of the repertoire of your unconscious mind to kind of lighten the load. That's what I mean by saying let's clear the plaque of the soul. Because when you have these thoughts, it's just creating plaque in your soul, like going to the dentist and having your teeth cleaned. You're doing it yourself by clearing the plaque with the words, I love you. You're saying, I love you to yourself. I forgive you. Thank you. It's done. And then I add like a machete or something to twirl around you and cut the cords and watch the people float away or that thing float away. It just really, it goes into a void, like the Buddhists call the void, and the Hawaiians call it the io. So it is back, it goes all the way back to creation. And so when it goes back to creation, it's erased and you get to start over.
And with the simple saying of, I'm sorry, I love you, I forgive you, and thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's
right.
wonderful.
And you could just be saying that for no reason at all. Just get into the habit of starting to say that. As soon as your hand touches the wheel of the car, you just say, I'm sorry, I love you, I forgive you, because it's between you and your higher self that you're offering this, regardless of what happened down there, you know, what happened in your life in past, and horrible things have happened to people, but you want to move on. It takes energy to create new things. You have to have life force. And if you're spending it with all of the stuff that happened to you in the past, you're cheating yourself out of what you could be creating for the future and to share with other people.
Yes, yes. I see this often with people that come in and have the negative self-talk. I came from a family of athletes, and when I was younger, my dad was a runner, and he would say to us, you can do it, hang in there, do your best, you can do it. And that became what I say to myself. And I think that that's been one of the big success things that has made me successful in my life, is just not even having the negative thoughts, but having this encouragement in my head too.
Wow.
Yeah.
They say if they start doing it at a really young age, they have you.
They have, yeah. Yeah.
In a good way, in a good way. Pick yourself up and brush yourself up and start all over
And
again.
start all over again. And thank you. So tell us a little bit how emotions play into this, to health. And
Well, the unconscious mind runs your body. You don't tell your heart to beat, do you?
no.
No. So you get a whole brand new cellular structure on the inside, but your conscious mind is talking to you all the time. It creates the stories. And the unconscious mind, which runs your body, is listening to those stories and doing exactly like a faithful computer what you tell it to do. So if you decide that you're going to be buddies with your unconscious mind, that's a great thing. Like say, it's time to take a deep breath now. So you take a deep breath, or you decide, well, I'm going to get pissed because that person said that to me. And so you start getting pissy and angry. And then the unconscious mind creates a chemical that bruises your heart muscle. Bingo. So you start hurting in the heart. I mean, you have a whole laboratory of emotions available to you at your creation. If you get excited and happy and joyful, that's worth millions of dollars of interleukin 2. It's a drug that people buy to heal cancer, kidney cancer. $20,000 a pop if you have to buy it. But if you're happy and you get excited, you can create millions of dollars of this interleukin 2. Who wouldn't want to do that, right?
Exactly.
Or go into a Zen mood, you start creating Valium. That's the Valium drug. So it's just understanding the laboratory that your unconscious mind has the ability to produce. It is your buddy. It is your partner in crime. And the unconscious also is the one who holds all these negative emotions. So when it feels that you're ready to put some closure onto it, it'll say, gee, I wonder if she's ready for this now. Boom. You know, something will come up and you have to decide, do I want to deal with that, or I just push it back down into my gut?
Yeah. And we see the effects of that on health clearly in our society, that we're not dealing with emotions in a healthy way. And I think a lot of people believe that they are at the whim of their emotions. That
Right. And you want to be able to see the conscious mind is like the adult. If you can get the adult to kind of hold the reins, because the little unconscious mind will go out in the street chasing rainbows and chasing butterflies and eating all the cookies in the cookie jar. You know, it's the emotional little child. It's like a 2-year-old. It is exactly like a 2-year-old. So you've got to really kind of hold it in rein and just be buddies with it and, not let it have so much freedom.
Exactly. Don't let your 2-year-old run wild.
Oh dear, and it has happened many times.
Yes, to all of us. So I did read about limits in Huna, that there aren't any limits, that anything and everything is possible.
Well, there's a book called Zero Limits that was written, I think maybe that's what you're referring to.
Maybe, yeah.
Joe Vitale's book.
Exactly.
And he wrote about Dr. E. Haleakala Len, who was a friend of mine. He's not teaching anymore, but he went around and brought people into Ho'oponopono, the forgiveness process. He was credited with going to a mentally psychotic hospital in Honolulu and healing all of the patients that were there to the point that the hospital shut down because there was nobody to incarcerate there anymore. And he did it with just doing the forgiveness process. So he would take a chart and would not even meet the person, but he would see the number that was related to the chart, and then he would go inside himself and clean the part of him that was that person. Because if you see anything that is in a dark nature or a light nature, whatever you see with these eyes has to be reflected by what you're seeing on the inside.
Ah, yes.
So if you can clear it up, if you see beauty, then beauty comes within you. If you see something that's dark, then that darkness is coming from within you. So he would clean up all the darkness that corresponded to that patient that he was looking at in the chart. And as he did that, the patient would heal. And every one of those patients healed, with the exception there were a couple that were sent to another hospital. And so Joe Vitale wrote about that in Zero Limits. But again, that's what we're doing when we're doing Ho'oponopono. So right now I every day put myself down below and I clear myself. I put the pandemic down below. I put all kinds of things in the way I'm looking at them. And then I forgive myself for holding on to that, cut the cords, and watch them float away. And they change. They change in a way that you look at them differently because you're giving now yourself a free slate to deal with the issue on a higher level. You're going from a low density to a higher level.
So, for instance, the pandemic, and because many people right now are feeling overwhelmed, understandably, with what is happening with the pandemic. So you go right into the "I'm sorry, I love you, I forgive you, thank you" mantra, and is that how you do the work?
Yeah, well, I have a CD called Chant and Forgiveness.
Okay.
And it does take you through the forgiveness process. I like to put myself up on a platform, looking down below, like looking down on a stage, and putting all the things there that I want to cut the cords from. So I would put the pandemic or the germs or the virus or whatever it is. I would see myself next to it. I would see the government there. I would see whatever it is that I'm blaming.
Yes.
Or whatever is taking my energy away. And then I would offer the forgiveness. I'm sorry, I love you, I forgive you, thank you. Take a cutting instrument and spin it around myself, coming from the higher self, and then watch those things float away. They float away. I'm forgiving myself for the way that I'm looking at that issue. So it's the judgments, it's the interpretations. Do you understand? So it's not the virus itself, it's the way I'm looking at the virus.
Right.
And when you do that, you get to see it at a higher level. And you just keep doing it until you become neutral. Because you don't want to get in fear of this. You want to be respectful. But you also want to come from a place of, science and knowledge and information.
Yeah. Do most people in Hawaii practice this? Is this something in the culture over there? No?
Again, it's like any kind of lost art. You know, when you go to Italy, I remember seeing people do these amazing mosaics where they could put different kinds of beautiful stonework and you know, just carving out cameos. And I see, you know, do people do this? No, it's a lost art. You know, we're hoping that our son and his son get to pass it down, but they have other things they want to do. They want to play games. They want to go on the internet. My teacher, my Hawaiian teacher, his family taught them Ho'oponopono. So he was one of the lucky ones. I call them lucky if they get to have it handed down to them and taught.
Absolutely. My reflexology practitioner learned from her great grandfather in China, reflexology. And there's nobody that compares to her just because she has this knowledge that is passed down for generations.
That's right.
Yeah.
So the chants that I do, that I have on my CDs, come from a lineage of people who have chanted before me. So when I chant, it's not just me, but it's the thousands of other people in that lineage.
Yes. Yes.
Do the same.
Now, I want to, before we wrap this up, I want to talk about the firewalk with Tony Robbins, just because I'm fascinated with this. And I think that you've done it a number of times now, haven't you?
I was married 18 years, and for some reason, after my 18th firewalk, I said, I'm done. I don't need to do this anymore. I guess that's what it represented.
Yeah. So do you get in and I have not done it before, clearly, do you get in a state of mind? Are you talking yourself up? What's part of the process of that?
When I started to study Huna, I started to understand about the firewalk, because we're a combination of earth, air, fire, and water. That's what makes up our body. And so we get into a state of being one with the fire. So we just build ourselves up. It's almost like a deep whoosh, you know, it's a whoosh. We're building warmth and fire within our body. So when we walk, we don't burn. But I burned once during my 8th firewalk. My son was walking behind me and I was focused on him instead of my own. That is not what you do.
In life, you focus on you.
Well, yeah, on your safety of walking across. And I also didn't feel good that day. I shouldn't have been walking. And my son did great, and I burned badly.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, I'm never going to do this again. But then again, you forget, you cut the cords, you know. And so I went to Hawaii. It was our big certification in Maui, and I did a 50-foot firewalk.
Oh my goodness.
But I had a partner who kept me in that state. You have to be in that state of being one with the fire. And it just worked beautifully. And we walked, and when we got to the end, we walked into the ocean, and oh, it was just magic. But it's a metaphor. It's not, oh, look at me, I can walk on fire. No, it's a metaphor that says, gee, if I can do this on 2,000 degrees of hot coals, what else can I do that I'm not doing?
Yeah. Which
So-
is exactly what we started with, is that's where you started. If I can do this, what else am I not doing? I'm not driving, I can drive race cars.
Yeah.
I can do all these other things. And we limit ourselves, especially I see with friends of mine that are getting older that, get in that mentality of, oh, I'm old. I can't do anything.
You've got to do it yourself. I had a friend that was going to come with me to the racetrack and do the course, and then she backed out. And I could have backed out, but I said, no, I will hate myself if I get to I've got to do this myself. So it's really all about you. If somebody backs out, don't you back out.
Yeah.
Because you may never come back and do it again.
Well, it sounds like a lot of Huna is about you. You taking responsibility, you doing the forgiveness work, you being one with.
It is self-healing. That's what's so wonderful. And when I teach 4 levels of Huna. So when you come to the first level, you get 4 symbols that represent the earth, the air, the fire, and the water. And they're they're practical. They're things that they're another language, and they help you to move out really dense energy from houses, from furniture, from just things that are threatening you. I mean, they're really applicable to your life. And the second level is you get angels, and it's just all about you. Yeah. And
Yeah.
empowering you. You.
I love it. I love it. Are there any words of wisdom you want to leave us with? And I will put, of course, the links in the show notes to your book and your website and how to contact you and set up appointments and all that.
Well, I'm just grateful that, I started studying Huna 25 years ago, almost 30 years ago, and people would say, Huna, who? Nobody ever heard of it. But I just kept with it because it made me feel good, and I could heal my back. I healed my back using these processes. And I continue to just want to teach people, if they're motivated, to be self-starters and to move through. I had no money to go through surgery, so I had no choice. You have to be creative when you don't have insurance. Yeah. So the more that you can self-heal, yay for you. So thank you for having a venue where I can still empower other people. And, it's the most wonderful way to love yourself and to continue to enjoy your life and create and be the fabulous person that you were meant to be.
Well, you are delightful, Belinda. I just appreciate you so much sharing your wisdom with us. And I cannot wait to read your book, too.
Well, it takes one to know one.
Thank you. All right. Thanks for joining us today, everyone.